Begin the record. Okay, good to see you all. Uh, see many familiar faces. Jeremy, you've been here before, sort of visiting, right?
Yes, I have.
Okay,
Good afternoon, Venerable George.
good afternoon. So we're going to begin with some recited, chanted prayers, which are meant to bring back remembering consciousness of the meeting, and then we're going to do our usual meditation. Sangye churang soki chognam la Jangchu Badu Dagni Kyapsu Chi Dagi Chunyen Gipe Sognam Gi Drola Penchi Sange Dupa Shog. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migrating beings. Drola Pencher. Sangye churang soki chognam la changchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupa sho. So in a big assembly, there would be an umze other than the teacher. So say if the Dalai Lama is teaching, so he wouldn't be saying dagi, what was it? Due to the Dagi Chunyen Gipe Songnamki, he would say Dagi Chushe. In that case, that she is spelled to mean explaining, due to the collections I create through explaining the Dharma. But because I'm I'm the Umze here, I can't say that. The Dalai Lama could say it, and no one else can. You can't make it out amongst all the other monastics that are chanting. By offering this ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. O holy and perfect pure lamas, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release, please send down a rain of vast and profound Dharma precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be subdued. Idam Guru Radna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Okay, so good to see a couple more people. Rachel, Anna, Karen, and David are here. Good to see you all. So we'll do a little meditation, try to calm our minds, get rid of the monkey mind that's uh, dominating our thoughts. Even when we're thinking about things, there are all these other, small little conceptual thoughts that are popping up. So sit comfortably, relax your body, relax your mind. Place your attention on the breathing, the respiration. And once you've recognized it, place your mindfulness on that. Keep it in mind very tightly to the exclusion of other thoughts, thereby denying those other thoughts as sort of denying them of some life energy. So they will begin to subside. Then bring your attention to the more subtle object of your mental consciousness, letting go of any longer watching the breathing, keeping that in mind. Let go of that. Recognize the mind through its contents. Try to get a mental image of that. That which is clear in knowing. And in this context, we're taking the clarity here to be the lack of any obstruction to the arisal or reabsorption of mental events. Mind is like in that sense, its nature is like a clear sky. It doesn't have any color. We're usually caught up in the continuation of conceptual thoughts, thinking about other people, maybe that we like or we dislike, or nurturing some kind of grievance or some thoughts of kindness or generosity. And we're controlled by that continuation of thoughts. So here, letting go of those thoughts and just looking at the substratum of the mind within which they arise, gives us a similar kind of feeling when you go out, when you've been up in doing meditation in a dark room, for instance, and you're just in a dark house. You come outside and you see the expanse of space. Or when your mind begins to sink during meditation when trying to do shine. One of the remedies is to go outside and look at the expanse of space, hopefully when there are no clouds. You try to identify one's mind with that spaciousness. Even if there are clouds present, you can understand that the sky itself lacks any obstruction to their arisal or abidance or dissolution back into the space, into the sky. In the same way, even when some thoughts are present, when you're trying to look at the clear light nature of the mind, their very presence revivifies or substantiates that understanding that the mind offers no resistance, no obstruction to thoughts, because the thoughts couldn't be there if there were some obstruction. In the same way that a boulder, the existence of a boulder, doesn't mean that there's no space in that area, in that volume where the boulder is. But the boulder could only exist there if there were space, if there were spaciousness there. This clear light nature of the mind, conventional clear light nature of the mind, means that we can develop the qualities that we have yet to develop, and we can get rid of the faults that we have. To recognize this should bring some sense of joy as we become more and more familiar with it. And this situation, to recognize this, is a result of this auspicious moment that we're experiencing right now of a life of leisure and endowment. A very special, auspicious moment in the sense of this lifetime passing like a moment, like a flash of lightning, during which, with a life of leisure and endowment like this, we can, as though on a dark night, when a flash of lightning illuminates everything just for an instant, now we can kind of see right from wrong, correct path from the wrong path. This has come about because of our creation of virtuous karma in the past to have this experience, and our prayers to be able to benefit others. The Buddha reminded us again and again that with an auspicious moment like this, with a life of leisure and endowment, we can use it for purely selfish, worldly aims, trying to become wealthy or have every pleasure imaginable at one's fingertips, to be famous or loved, or all of these worldly concerns we've engaged in numberless times before in other lives, and even this lifetime. Now we can work, having heard the teachings of the Buddha, which still exist, are still realizable. We can act to achieve an end to this. We can achieve liberation in this lifetime. We could achieve enlightenment in this lifetime, in theory. And not just those rare individuals who are just on the cusp of the 10th bhumi, about to achieve enlightenment. We could achieve enlightenment even before entering the path in one lifetime through the practice of highest yoga tantra. Why would we do that? Well, for our own aim, of course, but for the aim of others, there's always two aims involved. We want to achieve the Dharmakaya. That's the perfection, the fulfillment of one's own aim. And we want to achieve thereby the two emanation bodies, the Nirmanakaya and the Sambhogakaya, which is the culmination of the benefit of others, to be able to lead them through teachings, through our actions and so forth, lead them out of suffering into enlightenment. To achieve that state of enlightenment, we have to accumulate the two collections of merit and wisdom, which are explained in the Buddhist sutras, especially the Prajnaparamita Sutras, the collection of wisdom, and was explained by Nagarjuna, again, mainly the collection of wisdom, but in Dharmakirti, in Chandrakirti's Majjhimavatara, commenting on Nagarjuna's text, he supplemented that with the teachings that Nagarjuna gave elsewhere in other texts on the collection of merit, on the method side. Since this is the information we need in order to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of sentient beings, so that we can really benefit them, And this is explained in Lama Tsongkhapa's Gompa Rapsel in great detail. I'm going to participate today in the class in order to become enlightened, in order to eventually become enlightened, hopefully quickly become enlightened, from which standpoint I can effortlessly, spontaneously, and without error lead sentient beings wherever they are, from life to life, if need be, into that very same state of omniscience. That's the reason I'm going to participate in the class today. I'm going to listen, contemplate, and meditate in order to achieve enlightenment for the sake of mother sentient beings. Okay. What are we doing? I'm not sure. I'm not sure why some people turn off their cameras when they're meditating, but I'm thinking maybe they're relaxing. They don't want to.
It's so we don't get self-conscious, Venerable George.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good reason. Okay. So before we begin, any comments on our meditation or any questions or comments in general before we begin? How are we doing? Don, how are you doing? Do you have a question book? Did you ever get a little notebook to put your questions in?
Me, no, I have no questions right now, but I'm sure I'll have some during the class.
Okay, so but my question, I've asked you over the months, do you have a little booklet to put questions in? Because sometimes you say, oh, I have some questions, but I can't remember them now.
I don't have such a booklet.
Okay, so I suggest even if it's like a 29-cent little one, you just keep right here by your this place, and when questions come up, you can write them down so you can have. Rachel, any questions? Anything? No. Okay.
Not unless you want to be in a dream analysis, do some dream analysis.
Oh no, I'll pass on that right now. I hope they were good dreams. So I think I mentioned maybe I didn't mention last class the good news that Shanka has. Shanka, can you tell us your good news? Your auspicious news using this auspicious moment?
Other than the fact that I'm still alive today, I'm getting ordained in 2 weeks. So Gyuma Khense Rinpoche Lobsang Jampa accepted my request. So I was there last weekend, so that's why I missed this class. And I'll be gone again in a couple of weekends when that will happen. So there you go.
Well, that's great. And there will be a full complement of monks because there's a visiting Lama there, Jordan Rinpoche. And so that will be very, very auspicious. So we'll have
I'll just mention this for those who know that I'm married. I asked Gyuma Khense Rinpoche last year whether or not I can stay married and live in the same house and become a monastic, and he said yes, as long as you observe your celibacy vows. So yes.
Yeah. So there are examples of that. So now we will have a third shaved head besides Ron and myself in class, hopefully. Okay, KT, what do you think?
I had a quick question about the vows you're taking, Shanka, and that you've already taken, Venerable George. Where's like the compendium of vows like that you took that we could look at, or I'd love to look at what vows you're actually taking going from layperson to monk.
Okay, so although the Bodhisattva vows, which is different, right? There are three kinds of vows. Usually we say the pratimoksha vows, the Bodhisattva vows, and the tantric vows and commitments and so forth. The although the Bodhisattva vows should be known before you attempt to take the Bodhisattva vow, you should study it, and when you take the vow, remember them again and again so that you're not infracting them. That was, what the Buddhas taught. He said that the other two sets of vows should not be known before you take them. That is to say, the vows of a lay person can be known before you take it. That is a kind of pratimoksha vow. But the vows of a novice or a fully ordained monk or nun are not supposed to be known beforehand. Does anyone know why? Paul, what's the reason?
My understanding is that the motivation to become a renunciant is not because you think you can hold the vows, but rather because you're committed to the path to enlightenment.
Uh-huh.
That's how it was explained to me.
Yeah. So also,
Also because you don't want the lay people criticizing monastics, saying, "Hey, I know this is one of your vows and you're not doing this," et cetera, et cetera.
right, that's more easily understood. Yeah. So if people know you're not supposed to do something or you're supposed to do something, then the lay people can, in criticizing the Sangha for some minor infractions, they can create incredible negative karma and cause confusion and so forth. So, um, what are you going to say, Shankar?
I was just going to say that if you think it's appropriate, I was just going to mention that, the Western Geshe Lektsog, yeah, in Britain, right? So he has written a commentary on the vows that I can send if someone's interested. But again, if Venerable George thinks it's okay.
On the commentary on the Pratimoksha vows?
No, on the monastic vows.
That's what, okay. That's of the.
Oh, yes.
No, because
Okay,
you're
that's
not
fine then.
you're not supposed to. In fact, you're not supposed to read that yet either.
Well, okay.
Okay.
I haven't yet, but I've been told of it by representatives from IMI, so I'm assuming that they know what they're talking about. So there you go.
If they told you to read it beforehand, they don't know what they're talking about. So it's good that you have that, and then as soon as you take ordination and you sit down for your first tea, you can have that book and you can read it. You can read all the vows and everything like that. Okay, good. So that's good news. Now, very kindly, Venerable Steve, my dear friend of many years, organized or led a meditation. When was it? Yesterday on Namgyalma, on Ushnisha Vijaya, for my well-being. I was there also. There were a few of you there also. And what I wanted to do today was to give the oral transmission of the short mantra, not the long dharani. Do you remember? Well, some of you, some of you were not there, so you don't know. So I'm going to ask if Doris would put up, or if you've already put up in the chat, there are a couple of PDFs here, right? So the one of them is from the this great translation project, the 84,000 translation project, the translation of the Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani, which is a kind of a sutra-like entity. It's found in various places in the Kangyur, sometimes among the volume on Dharanis. And the booklet that came when we did the practice, the FPMT version, has a translation of that same, if you want to call it sutra, the Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani. But it was translated by Lama Zopa many, many years ago, and has some differences. This one is much more well, maybe it has a couple more corrections in it that might be missing in Lama Zopa's translation, so it's good to have. But the other one I wanted to mention was this PDF. Let's see if I can open it up here. There we go. It's called The Translation of the Namgyalma Dharani. And so what I've done is I've taken from that text, but from the 84,000 translation project, in note number 38 in that translation, there is a English attempt at an English translation of the long Dharani. So I thought that would be worth those of you who attended or who might do that in the future. If you open that up, you can see Om, veneration to the glorious Buddha, distinguished in all the three worlds, namely Om, broom, 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 purge, purge, pure, purify, purify. I won't read the whole thing. So it's a very long Dharani. That's the Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani. And the origin of that, although we didn't talk so much about it yesterday, was that once when asked by Indra, there was one god who was about to die, and he had some sort of sound came to him from space that said, "You will die within 7 days, and you will, and as a result of that, you will be born 7 times as an animal in quite miserable conditions, and then be born in the hell realms." And he was like freaking out, as we would say. And so he went to Chakra, which is not chakra, chakra, which is another epithet, another name of Indra, Lord of the gods in the desire realm, right? The top of Mount Meru. Different than Brahma, who's the gods of the form realm. So he went to Indra, and Indra couldn't help him, couldn't prevent his death in 7 days and so forth. So Indra went and requested the Buddha. Indra had kind of like an in with the Buddha, and the Buddha manifested from his Ushnisha light in all directions. It went to all the different universes and came back into his mouth, and he told that this Dharani, this long Dharani, would be something that could overcome that death if recited many, many, many times. So you could read about it in the sutra. So that's one thing. But right below that translation, there is another little section on that page, on that PDF. It says, from the Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani with its ritual manual. That's another text that you can find in the 84,000 collection. Just has those extra words, the Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani with its ritual manual. It's a separate text. And in that, in section 148, it says, it's talking about fire puja and so forth for this. It says, one can also perform the fire offering while reciting the Dharani, I mean, it's the long Dharani, together with the life-extending and intelligence-sharpening Dharani, Om Amrita Ayurdate Svaha, 800 times at the 3 times of the day. So I mention that because traditionally there is the short mantra of Ushnisha Vijaya, which is Om Brum Svaha, which is what Venerable Steve asked us to recite again and again during that long period of recitation yesterday. Om Brum Svaha. What is broom in this case? Anyone know? Mikhail, do you know what broom represents? Paul?
I assume it's the seed syllable for Ushnisha Vijaya.
One would think, yeah, it's sort of like,
Dhamma.
come again?
The wheel of Dharma, maybe something like that.
Maybe, but it's representing, in essence, sort of like the essence of the Dharani. So you recite the long Dharani a certain number of times, and then you recite the short, very short mantra, Om Brum Svaha, as Venerable Steve said, 4 syllables, Om Brum Svaha. So you recite that in a certain one of the very beginning kind of retreats. You recite that a certain number of times, 10,000 or 100,000 times. And the adjacent mantra to it is this one that we just see here, Om Amrita Ayurdate Svaha. So that is called here the life extending and intelligence sharpening Dharani. So, and that was on the page in the practice that we did yesterday, but Steve said just recite the first part, Om Brum Svaha. So this is the origin of that. And I wanted to give a oral transmission of these two. I'll just read the next note below that, also from section 151 in the Dharani manual, which you can download from the 84,000. It says, if one seeks some other accomplishment, one can recite the great Crown Victory Dharani. That's the Ushnisha Vijaya. This is the translation of that. Together with the life-extending and intelligence-sharpening Dharani. And then it has note 76, while performing the fire offering 100,000 times. So note 76 says, the fact that the life-extending and intelligence-sharpening here refers to the additional Dharani Om Amrita Ayurdade Svaha is suggested by the passage above in 148 there, which refers to the Dharani with precisely that phrase in the context of adding it to the main Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani. So I received these two mantras, Om Brum Svaha, Om, and Om Amrita Ayurdate Svaha in the Rinchen Gyatsa collection from Lama Zopa Rinpoche many years ago in Bodh Gaya. So I wanted to share that, the oral transmission of that. If later I find that I do have the oral transmission, I asked Steve if he would give the oral transmission of the long Dharani, and he said he wasn't sure he had it. So I will check whether I have that in the Rinchen Gyatsa, and later at some time we could do that. But right now, if you're interested, you can just pay attention. If you're not interested and you don't want to receive the oral transmission, you can just tune out for a minute. So first of all, Sangye Chodang Soke Chognam La Jangchu Baru Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Jinso Kipe Sognam Ki Drola Benji Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chodang Soke Chognam La Jangchu Baru Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Jinso Kipe Sonam Ki Sognam Ki Drola Benji Sangye Drupasho Sangye Chodang Soke Chognam La Jangchu Baru Dagni Kapsuchi Dagi Jinso Gipe Sognamgi Drola Penje Sangen Drumbajo. So the Jinsok in this case, more from my side, offering the mantra, offering the oral transmission. So just listen carefully. I'll recite the mantras 3 times in succession, because that's usually how they're written. They're usually written Om Brum Svaha, Om Amrita Ayurdate Svaha. They're written that way, and sometimes it's not clear whether they're meant to be 2 mantras, which they apparently are, or whether it's 1 mantra. So I will recite it that way 3 times. Om Brum Svaha, Om Amrita Ayurdate Svaha. Imagine that coming into your ears, into your heart. Om Brum Svaha, Om Amrita Ayurdate Svaha. Second time, solidifying that. Om Brum Svaha, Om Amrita Ayurdate Svaha. I think that has become stable in your mind, having received that. due to these virtues, may I quickly become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Okay, I just wanted to share that with you. So you could recite that mantra, those mantras, if you like. Say, for instance, when you're doing various long life practices, if you recite the Dharani of long life and intelligence that we practiced a couple of weeks ago, that was requested by Mintovo. Remember the long Dharani there. When you're practicing white Tara, which is another one of the long life deities, you could also, if you don't know any other, if you don't have the long Dharani of Ushnisha Vijaya, you can recite these two mantras: Om Brum Svaha, Om Amrita Ayurdati Svaha, as to pay respect to Namgyalma's power to extend one's life. So in the long life deities, usually there are three that are represented on tankas. You can see them often. There'll be white Tara and Ushnisha Vijaya and Amitayus, the long life deity. So there are many other long life deities. There's a white Haruka, many kinds of long life deities, but these are the famed three long life deities in Tibetan Buddhism. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So where are we? We're just about to begin the section on Thupten Jinpa's text, into Thupten Jinpa's text. Oh, and I didn't write down which page this is. That says, here as well as in the commentary, Chandrakirti cites the following passage from the Heap of Jewels Sutra. What page is that? Does anyone know?
Page 262, Venerable George.
262 from Jimpa. Okay. 262. And I don't know what page that is in Venerable Jones. I think it is page 144. So somewhere around there. Okay. So let's just figure out what we have, where we are right now. So we're just from the last class, we started this other section. Where was we talking about? Refuting the view that asserts existence by virtue of intrinsic existence, intrinsic characteristics. So this is the main section that we're talking about. And that is a subsection of how intrinsic arising, inherent arising, if you want, does not exist in any manner. Why is this being talked about? Because the main reasonings that prove non-inherent existence and non-true existence, when we talk about the emptiness of phenomena, the main reason for proving that is Nagarjuna's fourfold reasoning that we've begun to talk about in many ways. Here, though, Chandrakirti was sort of pointing out in particular inherent existence as opposed to true existence, because the Svatantrikas, especially Bhavaviveka, had this idea, as we've mentioned before, that they agree that emptiness means the lack of true existence. All phenomena are empty of true existence. But on the conventional level, according to Bhavaviveka, according to the Svatantrikas, on the conventional level, phenomena are inherently existent. They really can be found somewhere in their basis of designation. So that's why this section is being explained here, how intrinsic arising does not exist in any way. So we're on the first part, refuting the view that asserts existence by virtue of intrinsic characteristics. So there'll be various reasonings to refute that. And then rejecting objections raised against such a refutation. So we haven't gotten that far yet. So we're in refuting the view that asserts existence by virtue of intrinsic existence. There are three outlines. The consequence that an Arya's meditative equipoise would become the cause for the destruction of things. So we went over that last time. You remember that? Yeah, it's not as though that that it's some kind of psychic trick that the meditator could cause say the Prasangika meditator sitting amongst some Svatantrikas, if he meditated or he or she meditated on emptiness, that suddenly all of the Svatantrika's possessions would disappear, that they would be destroyed by his meditation. That's not what it's talking about. It means it's an absurd consequence that that when an Arya being were to be meditating on emptiness, for the Prasangika, that means also the lack, not only the lack of true existence, the lack of inherent existence, that that which the Svatantrika believe to be conventional phenomena on the conventional level to be inherently existent, since they don't appear to that meditative equipoise, that's kind of the meaning that they would be destroyed. So we talked about that last time, and we can go about that more. The second famous reasoning here, there are three reasonings here, but there's a fourth one that's implicit in the commentary. We'll see later. The second reason is the consequence that conventional truth would withstand reasoned analysis. Reasoned analysis, you could say it, reasoning analysis or ultimate analysis. That means conventional truths. That means things that exist for the deluded mind that can be established for that, like trees and your mugs and people and everything, all of the things that we call conventional things. They would withstand reasoned analysis if phenomena could be found in their basis of designation. And when you tried to search within the basis of designation for something, you would find them. So they would, quote, withstand reasoned analysis. What's another way of saying that? Mikhail, do you know? How do other people translate that? Withstand, or they could endure reasoned analysis, ultimate analysis. And the third reason here is the consequence that ultimate arising would not be negated. And so we'll come to that in a future verse here. So in this regard, I don't know if we mentioned this last time, note 482, Thupten Jinpa's note says, these 3 points, which are part of the demonstration of how intrinsic arising does not exist in any manner. That means not only on the ultimate level, there's no intrinsic arising, which the Svatantrikas would agree, but also on the conventional level, there's no intrinsic arising, which the Svatantrikas, especially Bhava Viveka, would say does exist. There's no intrinsic arising in any manner, on either level. These 3 points are presented in verses 634 to 637, 34, 35, 36, 37, 4 verses. Tsong reads these because Chandrakirti doesn't mention explicitly what he's doing there. So Khapa reads these as representing Chandrakirti's critique of fellow Madhyamika Bhavaviveka. Remember? Who, while denying ultimate arising, subscribes to some notion of arising by virtue of intrinsic characteristics. In his Essence of True Eloquence, which is what? Does anyone know? Rachel, do you know what that text is in Tibetan, the name?
Lekshe Ningpa.
Lekshe Ningpo, yeah. Lekshe Ningpo. So that's a longer name, actually. Is talking about the excellent explanation of the definitive and interpretable sutras, the essence of eloquence or something like that. In that text, in his Essence of True Eloquence, Tsongkhapa speaks of 3 arguments presented in the root text with one additional argument found in the commentary. That's just mirroring what I just said a moment ago. For a presentation of Tsongkhapa's reading of these 4 relevant stanzas of entering the middle way, Majjhimavatara, as developed in Essence of Eloquence, see Thurman's book, The Central Philosophy, pages 366 to 375. So I have made a PDF, 2 PDFs, which are also there. I think, did you put them up? I thought you did, yeah. So they're nearer the, yeah. One is called Hopkins' Main Reasonings. You can't see the whole name there. They're truncated on my screen anyway. And Thurman Main Reasonings. So Jimpa was not aware of Jeffrey Hopkins' unpublished manuscript, or if he was aware, he isn't quoting it here. But we received permission, in a sense. I think Hall said he thought that we could quote occasionally from Jeffrey's unpublished manuscript on Lekshe Ningpo, on this section of Lekshe Ningpo. He didn't translate the whole text. So those 2 PDFs, let's if you want, if you open up Jeffrey's for a second. Let me see if I can get it open on my screen here. There we go. So excerpt from Jeffrey Hopkins' unpublished translation. That means his unpublished translation of this section of Lekshe Ningpo, which is chapter 8. And in fact, I think that's the same number in Thurman's translation. He also calls this section 8. This section has 3 parts: identifying the main reasonings. So let's see. Section 8 is proving the absence of inherent existence. That could be in addition to proving the absence of true existence, but maybe here it's meaning the same thing. The harmony of dependent arising and emptiness. And then as a subsection of that, it says indicating what the consequentialists, the Prasangikas, take as the main reasonings refuting ultimate establishment. So that would include both true existence and inherent existence. So what are those main reasonings? Does anyone know? What are the main reasonings that Prasangika used to refute ultimate establishment? Stephen, do you know?
Well, there was the 4 points that you mentioned, but I think in general, refuting the 4 types of intrinsic production from self, other, self and other, or neither.
Yeah, so one shouldn't be confused. The 3 or 4 that we're mentioning in this section are not the actual reasonings that are used, that the Prasangika used to refute inherent existence. They are, as Stephen said, when you talk about the emptiness of phenomena, the main reasoning is this fourfold reasoning that phenomena are not produced from self, from other, from both, or causelessly. And when you talk about the selflessness of persons, the main reasoning there is using the 7-point analysis that we will go into great detail later in this text. Right now, in this section, we're still talking about the proving the emptiness of phenomena, and that means phenomena other than the person, but it still applies to the person, right? It's still, you could still use the same reasoning to establish the emptiness of the person, but these are the two main reasonings. So let's read what Jeffrey says here, just so we have an idea. So this section has 3 parts: identifying the main reasonings, how they refute true establishment by way of the object's own character. So that would mean how they refute inherent existence, and considering whether the non-existence of the negated inherent existence is or is not something being proved, which that section I don't include here because it's just mainly the first 2 sections here. So identifying the main reasonings. So there is a kind of a hypothetical question here. Let me make this a little bit larger. Oops. There we go. Question: what does this system, it means the Prasangika, take as the chief reasonings refuting that phenomena are ultimately established? So the answer, Chandrakirti supplement, the Madhyamavatara, says the analyses in these treatises, he's talking about Nagarjuna, are not made out of attachment to debate. Not to show off one's ability to debate and so forth, but they were set forth for the sake of liberation of sentient beings, set forth for the sake of release. In that way, all whatsoever reasoned analyses spoken about in Nagarjuna's treatise on the middle way, all the analyses that come in the fundamental wisdom, are only for the sake of sentient beings attaining release. Means liberation, another way of saying tarpa or moksha. Furthermore, sentient beings are bound in cyclic existence just through manifest adherence to a self of persons and of phenomena. Manifest adherence is this ngompa shemba, which is, it's like a strong form of dagzin or denzin, strong form of true grasping. When it says manifest adherence, means when you adhere to something, that means you, in this case, it means you're believing, you're going along with it. So that they are, furthermore, sentient beings are, basically saying, sentient beings are bound in samsara due to ignorance that's grasping to true existence and to inherent existence of persons and of phenomena. Moreover, manifest adherence, this very strong kind of grasping to true existence, manifest adherence to the two selves with respect to the two, the person which is the object of observation, with respect to which the thought I is generated, and the phenomena in the person's continuum are the main of what binds beings in cyclic existence. Hence, the main bases with respect to which a consciousness conceiving self is refuted through reasoning are these two conceptions of self. Conception of a truly existent persons and truly existent phenomena that are other than persons. Where is that?
Venerable,
Yes.
the phenomena in the person's continuum is referring to the aggregates.
So let's see, which say, moreover, manifest adherence to the two selves with respect to the person which is the object of observation with respect to the thought I is generated, and the phenomena in the person's continuum are the main things that bind beings in cyclic existence. So what are you thinking, Mikhail?
That the last part, phenomena in the person's continuum, is referring to the aggregates.
It's referring to the aggregates, and therefore, when it's saying they are the main. So that doesn't mean that grasping the things that are outside of your aggregates is not a problem, but the main things are grasping to yourself as inherently existent, and those things that are within your continuum that you consider yours. So that would be mainly I, grasping to I and mine, I believe. So let me continue. When in Chandrakirti's auto commentary to the supplement, so he wrote the supplement, the Avatara, and in his Bhasham, the auto commentary, he includes the reasonings settling suchness, setting forth suchness, which were spoken about in his supplement. He includes the reasonings in the setting of the two selflessnesses. He says that the reasonings refuting production from the four extremes we've talked about in Nagarjuna's, the first stanza of Nagarjuna, the four extremes indicate the selflessness of phenomena. Moreover, he says that the master Nagarjuna, thinking that through indicating with reasoning just the sameness of all phenomena as non-produced from among the 10 samenesses, which are mentioned in the Sutra on the 10 grounds, as the means by which a bodhisattva enters the sixth ground, the other samenesses of phenomena could be easily demonstrated, stated at the beginning of the treatise in the middle way, the reasoning refuting production from the four extremes, which begins with not from self, not from other. Okay, that sounds complicated, but it's something you've heard before. So he's saying that Nagarjuna, you remember when we were talking about that first stanza, Nagarjuna mentioned that what is the reason that he's going to try to disprove or to prove the emptiness of inherent arising or inherent production? Why that? Because the bodhisattvas who enter into the sixth ground they do so having an understanding of the sameness or the equality of phenomena in 10 senses. Do you remember that? The 10 equalities or the 10 samenesses. And of those 10, by understanding the first one, inherent production, you can easily understand the other 9. So that's why Nagarjuna chose to, talk about the emptiness of production, inherent production. Okay, so in that reason, so in the beginning of his treatise on the middle way, Nagarjuna reasoning refuting production from the four extremes, which begins with not from self, not from other. Hence, the chief reasoning proving selflessness of phenomena is the reasoning refuting production from the four extremes. Are there other reasonings, Mikhail, to prove emptiness of phenomena?
I think so, many, yeah. Like
Yeah,
dependent arising, or the four possibility of one and other, or
diamond slivers.
Diamond
the
slivers.
diamond slivers.
Yeah, there's several that are mentioned by various great pundits and so forth, but this is the Nagarjuna's take. This is the main reasoning, the refuting production from the four extremes. Okay, concerning this, Chandrakirti supplement, Madhyamaka says, because things are not produced causelessly or from causes such as Ishvara, they don't arise from without a cause or from causes that have contradictory implications, absurd implications, such as arising from a creator God. They are not created from both self and other. Because they are not produced from these ways, they are produced dependently. Because phenomena are dependent arisings. These conceptions of inherent existence cannot bear analysis. Therefore, this reasoning of dependent arising cuts through the nets of bad views. Hence, through the reasoning that external things such as sprouts and internal things such as compositional activity arise in dependence on causes and conditions. Giving examples, what a sprout arises from a seed, and the compositional factors the second link of the 12 links of dependent arising. What does he call it? Compositional activity. What do we often say? Karmic formations. That arises from ignorance as its condition, right? Because of ignorance as a condition, there is karmic formations and so forth. Because of that, their production and so forth are empty of inherent existence in the sense of being established by way of their own character and are not produced from self, other, both, or causelessly. Since Chandrakirti refutes the four extreme types of production in this way, the objective negation, true existence or inherent existence, is refuted in a manner that derives from just the reasoning of dependent arising, the king of reasonings, cutting all the nets of bad views. With respect to the main reasoning, so that's talking about the reasoning refuting inherent existence of phenomena. So when you talk about the inherent existence of persons, it says here, where with respect to the main reasoning refuting a self of persons, Chandrakirti supplement says, for example, a chariot is not established in these 7 ways, either as its own suchness or in the world, but without analysis, it is designated here in the world in dependence upon its parts. Although a chariot is not found through searching for it in the 7 ways, which we haven't talked about yet, but we will talk about, by searching for it in the 7 ways, that is, as one with its members, with its parts, so it's identical to its parts, or the shape, that the chariot is the shape of the collection. These are just examples. It is one with its members, or one that means one with its parts, different from, oh, I'm sorry, I skipped. Different from its parts, it possesses the parts, the 2 modes of mutual dependence, one depending upon the other, that the chariot depends on the parts depend on the chariot. Chandrakirti says that in a similar way, the person also is posited. Since he says that just that is a method of gaining easily the profound view of the reasonings for that should be known as the main reasonings refuting a self of persons. So here, just as an aside, of those 7 reasonings, is there a connection with the reasoning of one and other, Paul? Do you know?
I think that the 7 can be reduced to the 2, one and other, if I remember correctly.
The one or other, it's not one with the aggregates and not different than the aggregates. That's the first 2 of the 7. All the others are just sort of elaborations of that can be derived from that. So that in a sense, you're already familiar in a sense with the reasoning of the selflessness of persons that we've talked about many times. Also, the 4-point analysis that's famous in the Lanrim is essentially that. The person is not one with the aggregates, it's not inherently different than the aggregates, and so forth. So this Jeffrey's section here continues. Chandrakirti's supplement says, a yogi, when searching in the 7 ways, does not find the existence of this chariot. How could that which does not exist, that is not found when sought, right? If you can't find the chariot, how could that which not exist in the sense of not being found when sought through the 7 ways, how could that exist inherently? Through that way, a yogi easily enters into suchness. Therefore, here on the occasion of the Madhyamaka, the middle way school, the establishment of that chariot should be asserted in that way as established without examination. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that you don't examine, is that a chariot or is that a horse? It means you're not examining it with ultimate analysis, trying to find where the chariot is among its various parts. Since initially it is easier to understand the non-finding of the person when sought in the 7 ways, and it's easier to understand the imputation of the person in dependence upon its aggregates, the stages of instruction for finding for actual practice, the stages of instruction for actual practice are also like this. So what is that talking about when we talk about the 2 kinds of emptiness of phenomena and the emptiness of persons? Generally, the emptiness of phenomena is explained first, and then, like in our text right now, this whole section is talking about the emptiness of phenomena, right? Then later, it's talked about the emptiness of the person. Whereas in terms of realization, in terms of the stages of practice, the first realization you actually have of emptiness is by meditating on the emptiness of the person. And for the various reasons we've mentioned many classes. So that's what's being talked about here. This also derives from the reasoning of dependent arising, since the non-finding of the person as those 7, due to being just imputed in dependence upon the aggregates, is the meaning of the selflessness of persons. Thus, hold just this refutation of the 4 types of extreme production, that is the production from self, from other, both or causelessly, and so forth, and the 7, the oneness of nature, difference, and so forth, with respect to phenomena and persons, through the reasoning, respectively, of being dependently produced and being dependently imputed as the essence of the reasonings. So that's what's we've already talked about, but that's what this section begins with. But then in particular, we're here, the next outline, it says, how those reasonings refute establishment by way of the object's own character. So as Tumta Jimpa's note was talking about 480, is it 482? It says these 3 points, which are part of the demonstration of how intrinsic arising does not exist in any manner, they're presented in verses 634 to 637. So Khapa reads these as representing Chandrakirti's critique of Bhavaviveka, who, while denying ultimate arising, subscribes to some notion of arising by virtue of intrinsic characteristics. So the following section here would be worth, some of you may have read it already, may be worth reading. I won't go into it in detail now. It might be worth reading to understand the significance of this section that we're talking about now in Gompa Rapso. Okay, I'll leave that and go back to the text. So we've already gone through the section, the consequence that an Arya's meditative equipoise would become the cause for the destruction of things. All right, okay. And then we come to, let's see, 484. 485, right. Okay. So just before the section that we're going to start, we meant to start today, which says, here as well in the commentary, Chandrakirti cites the following passage from the Heap of Jewel Sutra. Just before that, there is a statement, maybe 2 sentences, 3 sentences before that. They may claim such things, Bhavaviveka and the Svatantrikas and so forth, that phenomena can be empty of true existence, but still have inherent existence, essentially. They may claim such things, but this degree of objectivity, this degree of some kind of inherent existence, findability out there, does in fact constitute true existence for the Prasangika. Well, they say for Nagarjuna and for Chandrakirti and Aryadeva, that inherent existence does constitute, that degree of objectivity does constitute true existence that has already been explained above. So in note 485, he says, see page 185 and the later discussion. So that, yeah. So page 185 is, the section there is called Identifying the Object of Negation, Grasping for True Existence, the Contrary Apprehension. So this came before in our text when we talked about what constituted grasping to true existence, which was the object of negation. That's what has to be negated. So the contrary apprehension. So the contrary apprehension would mean contrary to how phenomena are just imputedly existent. Contrary to that, there's the grasping to them as being inherently existent. Contrary to that, there is the fact that they exist conventionally as just imputed, merely imputed by thought and word upon a basis of designation. Okay. So now we come to where we are today. Here as well in the commentary, Chandrakirti cites the following passage from the Heap of Jewels Sutra, or Ratnakuta. Ratnakuta. What does Ratna mean? You know, Nadine?
It means jewel.
Jewel.
Like the Triratna. What are the Triratna? Nadine?
The three jewels.
3 jewels, right? So the Ratnakuta, kuta can mean pile or heap. In that famous sutra, it says in one section, it's actually the section requested by Kashyapya. He says, Kashyapya, this is the Buddha talking to Kashyapya. Kashyapya, furthermore, the middle way, perfectly discerning reality, does not make phenomena empty. Shima says, does not make them to be empty. Phenomena are themselves empty. It's not as like by meditating on emptiness, it's not as though by meditating on emptiness, things that are otherwise inherently existent or truly existent, by meditating on emptiness, they become empty. It's not like that. They are empty themselves, right? So Jimpa, in his note there, says this is in the Upali Paripricha, the section, the chapter of the Ratnakuta requested by Upali, but that's not that. It took a long time to find where it is. It's actually in the next chapter, which is called the chapter requested by Kashyapya, right? So in the 84,000 translation project, which you can check, they do have a translation of many of the chapters of the Ratnakuta, but the last one that they have translated is the one requested by Upali, which is within which you find the Sutra of the Three Heaps and the 35 Buddha Confession and so forth, and discussion about morality. That was Upali's chapter. The chapter after that, it says in process of translation. So we don't have the 84,000 translation of that sutra of the questions of Kashyapya, but it is quoted in this same quotation that we have right now. Kashyapya, furthermore, the middle way, the middle path, perfectly discerning reality, does not make phenomena to be empty. Phenomena are themselves empty. Or as FPMT translation says, Kashyapya, furthermore, as for the middle way, Madhyamaka path, correctly and individually investigating phenomena, any emptiness does not make phenomena empty. Or better to say, that which is, empty, that which is emptiness does not make phenomena empty. Phenomena themselves are empty. In the ocean of reasoning, Lama Tsong Khapa's commentary to the Prasanapada, right? So in that, on page 300, if you happen to have that book, this translation by Geshe-Nawan Samden and Jay Garfield, page 300. Change glasses here. So what is this? This is the examination of compounded phenomena. So this is chapter 13. So each of the chapters of the fundamental wisdom is an examination of something like coming and going, or the examination of the two truths, examination of the four truths, Here it's the examination of compounded phenomena. And in this, there is, at the beginning here, on page 300, right at the top, it says, presentation of the source treatises. So it says the source sutra we have been explaining is the Ratnakuta Sutra, and from within that it is the Kashyapya Parivrata Sutra. So that's the chapter requested by Kashyapya. And so this is a little bit longer quotation than we have in our text. So let me read it a little longer. You'll see the part that corresponds to ours. That which is emptiness does not empty phenomena. That's what Jimpa is translating. The middle path, perfectly discerning reality, does not make phenomena to be empty. He says, emptiness does not empty phenomena because the phenomena themselves are empty. That which is signlessness does not make phenomena signless because phenomena themselves are signless. That which is wishlessness does not make phenomena wishless because phenomena themselves are wishless. What is that talking about? Emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness. Do you know, Shanga, what those are?
I should, but I can't seem to, like put it all together.
Okay. Who knows? Rachel knows.
Well, I know them in the four, emptiness, signlessness, wishlessness, and non-activity. These four empty.
Right. Especially in Tantra, sometimes they take the four doors of liberation, like the four doors of mandala, right? And they can even be associated that way. But when you talk about these three, they're called the three doors of liberation. Right. So that phenomena are empty, they're wishless, and they're signless. That talks about phenomena of the three times. So because phenomena are signless, that which is wishlessness does not make phenomena wishless because phenomena themselves are wishless. To so analyze, O Kashyapya, is called the middle path. In the correct analysis of phenomena, it's called the middle path in the correct analysis of phenomena. O Kashyapya, I say that whoever analyzes emptiness by objectifying emptiness has fallen far from my teachings. What does that mean? Whoever analyzes emptiness by objectifying emptiness has fallen far from my teachings. KT, what do you think? What does that mean?
Objectifying maybe is a sort of like maybe the making solid or reifying emptiness or making it so substantial that it's no longer emptiness.
Yeah, like say, for instance, you could argue that phenomena are empty, but come on, emptiness exists there, findably. It's truly existent or inherently existent. Anyone who objectifies emptiness itself, emptiness itself is de-objectifying phenomena, that there's no real findable object out there. But in the end of that, you get some people think, oh, but emptiness itself, that's the ultimate truth. That can be found. That's real. That's called objectifying emptiness. That will be coming up in other contexts there. So you can check that in Ocean of Reasoning. Also in Chandrakirti's translation of the Madhyamaka itself. He quotes these verses. Okay, so there's the quote from the Heap of Jewels Sutra, the Ratnakuta, from the what did I just say? The Kashyapya Parivrata section, the request by Kashyapya, which Jimpa misidentifies in note 486. He says the questions of Upali. So anyone who's keeping track of these various things, you might want to let Jimpa know for future editions. It's not in the Upali chapter. Okay. So I'm taking by the waving arms of Louise a couple of minutes ago that it might be a good time to take a break. So let's take a little break. We want to say something else, Doris? Did you have something else to say?
Sorry, we were kind of debating on how to get you to take a break.
Oh.
Just a reminder about Monday's discussion.
Oh, yeah. You reminded me. I asked you to remind me, but you said you needed someone to remind you, but maybe you're better. So I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow in the early afternoon. So we won't have not tomorrow, Monday. So we won't have discussion group this coming Monday. With my apologies, we will continue with class next Saturday. So with that, let's take a little break. I will stick around.
Object of abandonment.
Right. So that's what Prasangika says. So the lower tenets generally say, so for Prasangika, true cessation is an emptiness. And true cessation, therefore, is an ultimate truth. What were you going to say, Paul? Were you?
No, I just caught that just as I was coming back. You were saying about the lower schools and the types of cessations. Was that you were asking?
Yeah, what we were talking about.
Well, analytical and non-analytical cessations, I think, are the divisions that
it was coming up maybe in the wrong sense. Started from Rachel asking, expressing her frustration that when you talk about ultimate and emptiness, it's becoming a little bit unclear whether they exist or they don't exist. We stated unambiguously from the Prasangika point of view, maybe from all the Mahayana schools, emptiness exists. That is from the Mahayana schools, the Chittamatra, the Svatantrika, the Prasangika. There are some other scholars who might say that emptiness cannot be realized or emptiness exists inherently or something like this. But what we're trying to set forth here, what Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, Lama Khapa are setting forth is getting this correct view of emptiness. It's kind of like we're honing our mental image of emptiness by these various discussions. And that's a prerequisite to be able to realize emptiness directly. Well, first of all, it's an obstacle to realizing emptiness, because to realize emptiness or to realize any phenomena, you have to have gotten rid of the superimpositions involving it. You have to have a factually concordant mental image of it in order to realize it with your mental consciousness, right? You have to have a factually concordant mental image. So a factually concordant mental image can be one that's obtained through seeing a rose with your eye, and therefore you have a mental image of that rose, and you can have a realization of roseness or something like that. But when we talk about hidden phenomena like emptiness, that mental image is absolutely essential to realizing emptiness from the Prasangika point of view. You have to have a mental image which is in accordance with reality. It can't be just some made-up mental image. Oh, emptiness is like this, it has to accord with reality. And then by analyzing that, meditating on that again and again, the mental image can begin to slowly disappear, and you can have a direct realization of emptiness. but all depends upon having this factually concordant mental image of emptiness, right? Something which is actually the correct understanding. Okay, so let's continue. So here as well in the commentary, Chandrakirti cites the following passage in the Heap of Jewels Sutra. Kashyapya, furthermore, the middle path, perfectly discerning reality, does not make phenomena to be empty. Phenomena are themselves empty. So the commentary to that, Lama Khapa says, Chandrakirti cites similar statements in that sutra in relation to signlessness, wishlessness, and the absence of conditioning, as well as to being unborn and unoriginated. And in his note 487, he says, emptiness, signlessness, and wishlessness together constitute the three doors of liberation. Remember, we were talking about them a couple of minutes ago, and refer respectively to the emptiness of things themselves. When you talk about emptiness, their causes, which is talking about signlessness, and their effects, which refers to wishlessness. So effects are something that come about in the future. So they're things that you could wish for. That's the way I remember which one to connect with which. Okay, so that's note 487 there. So we, in that quotation that we read from Ocean of Reasoning, which is expanded from the quotation that we have here, it did mention those others. Then the Jimpa's translation continues. Now, if phenomena were to possess natures that exist through their intrinsic characteristics, now this is a hypothetical, right? Bhava Viveka, the Svatantrikas are saying that phenomena have a intrinsic existence. They exist by means of their intrinsic characteristics or their inherent existence. If they were to be that way, then these phenomena would not be empty. They would not be empty. Does that make sense? Sean, does that make sense? If they existed, let's say, if they existed inherently, if they existed through their intrinsic characteristics, these phenomena would not be empty.
Yeah, if something existed inherently, then it should exist in equipoise on emptiness.
Oh, well, Svatantrikas wouldn't say that. They would say that it can, they say explicitly that it can exist conventionally inherently, but ultimately in meditative equipoise and emptiness, it doesn't exist inherently. There's no inherent arising ultimately.
But yeah, that gets back to the crux of the problem, is because they're using the term mere inherent existence, which is no different than the Prasangika saying merely imputed. Like conventionally things exist.
Where do you see the statement mere inherent existence? I don't see that.
It was brought up some earlier time.
Mere inherent existence. Not sure what that means.
Well, I don't either, but
well, let's see what it's saying here. Now, if phenomena were to possess natures that exist through their intrinsic characteristics, if they were inherently existent, in other words, that means you could find them somewhere within their basis of designation, then these phenomena would not be empty.
Exactly.
Does that follow, Paul? Or yeah, what do you think?
Say that again, George?
The next statement in Jimpa's translation. Now, if phenomena were to possess natures that exist through their intrinsic characteristics, then these phenomena would not be empty. Why wouldn't they be empty?
Well, because emptiness implies a lack of one's own characteristics from one's own side, at least.
We could work back that way. Yeah, we could say emptiness for Prasangika, emptiness means emptiness of true existence, which is equivalent to emptiness of inherent existence. So if they were to inherently exist, they wouldn't be empty. We could say that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any other, without saying that, trying to prove that, Mikhail? Now, if phenomena were to possess natures that exist through their intrinsic characteristics, then these phenomena would not be empty. Why is that, Mikhail?
I see no other reason because the meaning is completely, like Paul said, empty is empty of intrinsic characteristics.
The statement seems like a tautology, right? I mean,
Right. So that's what I'm saying. How do you prove that? Now, if phenomena were to possess natures that exist through their intrinsic characteristics, Svatantrika would say they can exist that way conventionally, but ultimately they are empty of inherent, inherent existence. They're empty of inherent existence, but in particular, there's no inherent production and so forth in emptiness. There is inherently existent production in the conventional level for Svatantrika, right? Things inherently arise. Prasangika would say, no, if they inherently arise, they have to truly arise. They have to arise truly, which is, they're synonymous for Prasangika.
But that's not their definition is the problem. Their definition of inherent existence was that it appear, how did they say it?
Who, the Svatantrikas?
Yeah, there's, I wrote it down here somewhere.
Okay.
There is a way that a phenomenon exists that designates it as unique in comparison to all other phenomena. That's not the same as how the Prasangika is using inherent existence. That sounds more like a conventional imputation. So their definition is not the same.
No, when you say their definition, I'm not sure where that was stated like that. Bhaviveka, in talking about phenomena, say that a phenomena can be found, an example of a phenomena can be found within its basis of designation. That somehow, for instance, the person, there is an example of the person, which for the Svatantrika would be like what, the subtle mind or the mental continuum or something like that. Like all of the lower tenets say that somehow you could always point to something as a example of it, even if it's imputedly existent. You can point to something which is an illustration of that. Like say for the person, the illustration of the person's body is not the illustration of the person, their feelings, compositional factors, discriminations, their form, their feelings, their discriminations, their compositional factors. Those four aggregates are not an illustration of the person, but the illustration of the person can be found in the mental consciousness, either subtle or gross or something. Because of adherence to that tenet, Chandrakirti would say that whatever Bhaviveka is claiming to be the meaning of inherent existence, he is saying actually this is what he means. This is the definition of inherent existence for the Svatantrika, that the object can be found within its basis of designation.
Well, because I went back to that class 57 where this came up before.
Oh, class 57, of course.
And you brought it back to the crux of the issue was that the Svatantrika says the conventional existence of phenomenon are posited not as mere imputation by conception, but are posited or imputed instead by the power of appearing to a non-defective valid consciousness that is not affected by the causes or under the power of error.
Right, right.
But that I think that in itself is implying a type of inherent existence is probably what the argument is from the Prasangika side.
You're saying regardless of how you define it, in your philosophical system, in practice, what you are actually implying is that phenomena do have, when you say that a phenomena can be found within its basis of designation, that means when you do ultimate analysis on something, you can find it. So the Svatantrikas would have some, they wouldn't necessarily agree with that. So a lot of people who try to defend Svatantrika and Bhava Viveka say, just as you're saying, that's not what Bhava Viveka is saying. That's not what the Svatantrikas are saying. They try to defend them. But Chandrakirti, of course, did Nagarjuna have to contend with Bhava Viveka's statements with the Svatantrika system? Why not?
They weren't in the same time period.
Nagarjuna was much before them, right? It wasn't until many hundred years after Nagarjuna's composition of fundamental wisdom that these other systems arose. Okay, let's continue. So now, if phenomena were to possess natures that exist through their intrinsic characteristics, then these phenomena would not be empty. So that's not quite clear. Maybe some of you are clear. And then the sutra statement that phenomena are themselves empty would become incorrect. So he has a note here, 488. He says, in his Essence of True Eloquence, that's the same text that we were quoting before, Khapa lists this as the additional fourth argument presented in the commentary that the statement in the sutra that things are devoid of intrinsic existence would be incorrect. And he quotes Thurman's translation of that. Do you follow what we're saying here? The sutra's statement that phenomena are themselves empty would become incorrect. What is he saying there? That the statement in the sutra that things are devoid of intrinsic existence would be incorrect. Okay, we'll be getting to that later after the three reasonings in the commentary, or maybe in the commentary of the second reasoning. It's going to be talking about this. Let's continue. Since existence in its own right, by virtue of an essence, so this is another hypothetical synonym of intrinsic existence, right? Existing from its own side, existing by way of its own characteristics. Here, what existing by way of its own right, by virtue of an essence. Since existence in its own right, by virtue of an essence, is not then negated, things will have to be shown to be empty of something else. So what is it saying? It's saying that you don't want to contradict the sutra statements that say that phenomena are empty. They are themselves empty. You don't want to contradict that. But since existence in its own right, by virtue of an essence, is not negated, if you say that there is existence by way of its own characteristics, things will have to be shown to be empty of something else. Do you follow their reasoning? What's happening? Okay, good. Anna says no. So these other, let's say, hypothetical Madhyamikas, they would say that, oh, you can't contradict the sutra. The sutra says that phenomena are themselves empty. But, let's say the Svatantra, but, or someone like the Svatantra, but phenomena do exist inherently on the conventional level. They do exist inherently, or by virtue of an essence. Since existence in its own right by virtue of an essence is not then negated, things will have to be shown to be empty of something else. So this is getting into the origin of the idea of this, what's called other emptiness or self-emptiness. Other emptiness, shentong, you've heard that expression before, right? And self-emptiness, we call it self-emptiness? Yeah, self-emptiness, rangtong. So generally, for Prasangika, phenomena are empty of their own nature. The mug is not empty of mug, otherwise the mug wouldn't exist. The mug is empty of inherently existent nature of mug, right? Mug, the conventionally existent mug, is empty of an inherently existent nature of mug. That's what rangtong means. But shentong would mean that you can't refute the inherent existence of the mug, so therefore you have to find something else that it's empty of. Something that's other than the mug. Sean, what do you think?
I just wanted to bring up one other thing you said from class 57 that I think hits on the mistake that they're making, because they said what appears to sense perception is not true existence, but is a correct or valid conventional existence if the sense consciousness is not affected by a source of error.
Right.
And the Prasangika is saying, well, all those conventional perceptions are mistaken because you're saying it appears inherently, or you're saying it doesn't appear truly existent, but that statement is implying that it is true and not mistaken. And so, because the Prasangika would say all of those phenomena are mistaken.
Wait. So much of what you're saying is a correct presentation of what we said. So from Svatantrika point of view, well, let's say for Prasangika, how do phenomena appear to a consciousness? KT, do you know, for Prasangika, how do phenomena appear to consciousness? In what way? In which nature?
The phenomena appear to consciousness as veiled truths or simvriti or
Yeah.
simvriti. I forgot how to say the word.
Satya. Yeah, satya means truth.
Yes.
So, but from Prasangika point of view, phenomena appear to be truly existent. True existence appears to the senses. It appears to the ear sense, the eye sense, the nose sense, all of the senses. Whereas for Svatantrika, phenomena do not appear to be truly existent. That's something that the mind superimposes upon phenomena. That's what was being referred to in the last part of the section that you were referring to in class 87. That was like half. What class are we on now? We're about 100 and
109, I think.
100. Yeah, it's
Or
almost
10.
like half.
It was 57, not 80.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So you remember pretty well. 57, right? So that's just another point. For Svatantrika, phenomena do not appear to be truly existent to the senses, but for Prasangika, they do appear to be truly existent. Okay, let's continue here. Since existence in its own right by virtue of an essence is not then negated, things will have to be shown to be empty of something else. So that would be the Shentong. This, of course, will contradict the sutra statement that emptiness does not cause phenomena to become empty. It doesn't cause them to be empty, or it doesn't empty them. All of this shows how the middle path, by examining the individual characteristics of phenomena, reveals how all phenomena are empty of existing in their own right, that is to say, existing by virtue of their own essence. All of this shows how the middle path, by examining the individual characteristics of phenomena, reveals how all phenomena are empty of inherent existence, in other words. So let's continue. The sutra also rejects the assertion of the Chittamatra school. So it says also rejects. So the previous rejection was rejecting the views of the Svatantrika and certain others who were propounding Shentong, other emptiness. So the sutra also, the sutra citation, also rejects the assertion of the Chittamatra school that the dependent nature is not empty of existence by virtue of intrinsic characteristic, but is empty in the sense of being devoid of substantial duality of subject and object. Whoa. Is this coming out of left field or right field? I'm not sure. Okay, what does it say? So the Chittamatra school and the Yogacara Svatantrikas talk about these three natures. So do you know what they are, Mikhail? The three natures?
Yeah, dependent natures, imputed natures, and thoroughly established natures.
Right. So dependent natures mean that, generally what we would call dependent phenomena that arise because of causes and conditions. So for the Chittamatra, so the assertion of the Chittamatra school that the dependent nature, or those things that have dependent nature, are not empty of existence by virtue of an intrinsic characteristic, but they are empty in the sense of being devoid of substantial duality of subject and object. So they're saying that phenomena, the emptiness of phenomena of the dependent nature is not its emptiness of inherent existence. What's another way of saying that? Dependent phenomena do exist inherently. They are not empty of existence by virtue of intrinsic characteristic. But they have to be empty in some sense because Chittamatra accepts that all phenomena are empty. In what sense are phenomena empty? They're empty in the sense that they're empty of there existing a duality between the object apprehended and the apprehending subject, right? Those two appear to be separate, subject and object, whereas from the Chittamatra point of view, they both arise from one seed in the consciousness, the alaya vijnana, and therefore they're devoid of a substantial duality of subject and object. Remember when we talked about the mind-only school? Does that sound familiar to you? Some of you may not have heard before. Jeremy, have you studied this before? You there?
Yes, sorry. I have some familiarity with these ideas. Thank you.
Okay, that's a good enough. Okay, so that's what's being talked about here. The sutra also rejects the assertion of the Chittamatra school. So that means this particular citation, that dependent nature is not empty of existence by virtue of intrinsic characteristic, that it does exist inherently, but rather it is empty in the sense of being devoid of a substantial duality of subject and object. It says in the 400 stanzas by Aryadeva, it's not that what is not empty is seen as empty, right? It's not the case that things that are actually, truly existent, that somehow you force them to be empty by means of your meditation. It is not that what is not empty is seen as empty. If one were to harbor the thought, may nirvana be mine, that's the thought. One cannot attain nirvana through such a false view. So taught the Tathagata. So Jimpa's note 492, is it 492 or 491 there? On that.
489.
Okay, 489. Thank you. So that note just refers to the 400 stanzas. It doesn't give any commentary there. So other translations of this verse that might sound a little bit better. In Geshe Sonam Rinpoche's teaching on the 400 stanzas, translated by Ruth Sonam, that book, I think it used to be called the 400, the yogic deeds of bodhisattvas. Now it has another title. This is verse 182 out of 400. It doesn't say which chapter here, but in Geshe Sonam Rinpoche's teaching that was translated by Ruth, it says, one does not regard that which is not empty as empty, thinking thereby to gain nirvana. It makes a little more sense. If you think that you can gain nirvana by regarding that which is actually truly existent as empty of true existence, just thinking that, thinking is somehow in your mind holding it to be truly existent, but thinking that, philosophically thinking that it is empty, you can't attain nirvana. The Tathagatas say that nirvana will not be attained through wrong views. Okay, does it make sense? Did I see only the people that are turning? Who does not? You don't get it. Okay, Shanka, what do you think?
So I was just asking, where were you reading from in Geshe Sonam's Rinpoche's the 400
stanzas? Yeah. So this, I was trying to see here if it's in the chapter. It's verse 182.
Okay.
So sometimes I think in that text they number them, the 400 standards, although they break it up into chapters, as is done in the.
Yes, I see it. Okay, thank you.
I think there's 25 verses per chapter, Venerable George.
Oh no, I don't think so. Are there? I think
So.
the number of verses chapter
in the 400. I think they're consistent.
It's in chapter 8. Either way, it's in chapter 8 for your reference.
Okay, I'll check that. I stand corrected if there are 25. I didn't realize that per chapter. And being 8 chapters, that would that
Yeah,
give
because it's 16 chapters, and so chapter 8 would be 176 through
okay,
200.
Got it. Thank you. Oh, that's good to remember. I didn't realize that. So 25 verses per chapter, 16 chapters. Okay, that's clear. Okay. So then now there's another quotation from Fundamental Wisdom. Fundamental Wisdom as well presents the meaning of the sutra cited above. Though in Nagarjuna's text, he also quotes that Kashyapya chapter from the Ratnakutta, and he says, in terms of explaining that, the conqueror, that means the Buddha, stated that emptiness eliminates all views, all metaphysical views. What does that mean? You can't have right view? No, it means that all wrong views, emptiness eliminates all wrong views. So he who views emptiness as real, this the Buddha called incurable. You know. Gangdak Tompa Nitawa, viewing to that which is empty, Dedak Druptu Mepar Sung. So that's here he says, what does he say? They're called incurable, whereas the text says Dedak Druptu Mepar Sung. So this is in chapter 13 of Fundamental Wisdom, verse 8. So it's fundamental wisdom that doesn't have an equal number. I was confused. Doesn't have an equal number of verses. In fundamental wisdom, there's some chapters that have fewer verses and some that have many more. So how does that work? Mikhail, do you see the Tibetan of that verse?
Yeah, the FPMT translation says more literally lacking achievement instead of incurable.
Right. Druptu Mepar Sung. So it's taking it literally there. The Venerable Jones translation of that. Oh no. I think she said the Buddha taught as being incurable. What translation do you have where it says?
Illumination of the thought from FPMT. Maybe it's an old one. I don't know. Or a recent one. I got it from I think, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe another version.
Okay. So there it says,
they are taught as lacking achievement.
Lacking achievement. Dedak Druptu made parsung. Yeah, that would seem to be as lacking Druptu me. I'm not sure that is Druptu means the same as droop. But so both of them are taking in the final version of the FPMT that's currently being used, it says the Buddha taught as being incurable. So the sung, the word Buddha is implied there. It is taught to be Druptu Mepar. So I suppose in the dictionary, do you have access, Paul, easily to one of the online dictionaries, the Druptu or Druptu Me?
Well, droop do would be an infinitive form, right? So may, there is nothing to accomplish. I mean, the question is the Dedak, you would have to say they do not exist as something to be accomplished. I'm not quite getting the grammar myself.
I think the Dedak refers to the people who are holding that view.
Right. So
Anga, those who view emptiness,
right,
real,
right.
They
lack, or for them, there is nothing that can be accomplished, something like that.
That droop with the vowel prefix.
Yeah, that would be the future tense form of the verb.
There's not a different word?
No, it's just the future tense of
But are you looking in a dictionary, or
I remember the tenses.
Can you look in the online dictionary to see where they're getting that to mean incurable?
Yeah, I'm not sure where they're getting that to mean incurable, because I mean, yeah.
Okay.
Rup is just, yeah, to attain, to accomplish. Yeah. I mean, I think they're just, now, unless they're translating from the Sanskrit, in which case you said this was chapter 13, verse 8. Is that what you
Yes.
said?
Yes.
Let me see if I can pull up the Sanskrit for that.
So Druptume cannot be realized. This is what the University of Virginia says. Okay, Druptumepa. Not something to be achieved, literally. And this is saying
13:8.
asadam, like
Asadyan, yeah.
is that what is said in the Sanskrit?
Yeah. So here I'll post the Sanskrit in the chat.
So that would seem to be more in line with what Mikhail was saying was the original or an earlier version of the FPMT translation, that this the Buddha called as what? What did you say, Mikhail? It said
lacking achievement.
lacking achievement. Yeah. So I'm not sure where they came up, where Jimpa came up with incurable. I think
that's from Sanskrit. There's an entry in Monier Williams for asadya,
yeah.
Not to be completed, not to be able to accomplish, but a second meaning, incurable, irremediable. That's from the Mahabharata, though, and the Sushruta Samhita.
Okay, interesting.
So they pulled that one out of Monier Williams as a meaning of the Sanskrit.
Okay. So basically what this is saying, the Buddhist said that the correct view of emptiness, if you have that correct view, that eliminates all of the conceptual elaborations and all kinds of wrong views, all metaphysical views. So he who holds or views emptiness as real, they haven't realized emptiness, because to hold emptiness as real would be a metaphysical view, let's say, or a wrong view. So he who views emptiness as real, this the Buddha called, or though he, Kangdak, actually it's plural, those who view emptiness as real, they the Buddha called incurable. Right? Okay. Does that make sense? Shankar, is it making sense to you now?
A little bit. I still have to kind of think about it.
Okay. Let's stop there. We're going to begin then with this next paragraph. This then is the intended meaning. Let me see if I can change the color here so that I can remember. Okay. This then is also the intended meaning of the statement that all phenomena are empty of their own essence. Therefore, it is totally incorrect to assert that a vase, a pot, is empty of true existence, but not being empty of itself constitutes extrinsic emptiness, and that the vase being empty of the vase itself constitute intrinsic emptiness. So we'll talk about this next time. That's his translation of Rangtong and Shentong. Which is which? What is extrinsic? Am I pronouncing that right? Extrinsic emptiness.
I think that's the Shendong, yeah.
That's Shentong. And extrinsic, okay, maybe empty of something else. Extrinsic. And intrinsic emptiness is Rangtong. That means being empty of the vase itself constitutes intrinsic emptiness. So we'll talk a little bit about this next time also. Again, there'll be no discussion group that I attend anyway. You're welcome to meet on Monday. I have a doctor's appointment, so we'll have our next class next Saturday.